And now we get to just the strats, ma'am. In this segment, we break down various things in the world of game shows to help you win bigger on game shows if you get on them. And who better to talk about it than Jessica Brand? Jessica, what game show are we going to be talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about the greatest game of your lives. It's Press Your Luck.
Hooray!
Yeah, Press Your Luck. We can't fully Larson this today, unfortunately, but there are a lot of strats that we can use to try to take advantage of really what's the main game, and it relates to the end game too, because the flaws with Press Your Luck are apparent across rounds. So, okay. So, if we talk about why we're making, like, let's say we're baking bread, right? And we cut off the ends of the loaf every time we do it. And we find out that, hey, we cut off loaves because back in the day, you had to cut off the ends of the loaves, or the bread couldn't fit in the oven. But Press Your Luck is kind of like that, where we cut off the loaves still because we still want to fit it back to the time that was set originally in the 80s. So we still have 80s flaws in 2019. Once that Whammy fixed, but Press Your Luck, the revival hasn't. So
explain about the flaws that Whammy fixed that the current Press Your Luck has. So elaborate on that.
Yeah, I will. That's part of how we take advantage as well. So number one, this one is pretty obvious, but it's important as we get into things. Number one, every space on the board is only going to have 3 outcomes. You know, with the slide projectors. Could have made it a lot more. You can have prizes move around the board. They didn't do it. But it's just as easy to figure out where Whammy is and so forth because of the 3 slide pattern. So we have a board layout that we can memorize as much. Right? So that ties into number 2. Whammy fixed the fact that all the spaces change at the same time. This version doesn't. And basically, you can count how many whammies there are on the board. And you couldn't, obviously, on Whammy because it was changing constantly at different parts of the board. But this is a unilateral movement by this big board. So why not take advantage of that? So we have to realize that we have to stop it, of course, in a reasonable time. If there's no whammies on the board for a while, that so far has only happened 1 every 50 slides. But it is doable, so you could take forever if you wanted to. So I think they would probably say something if you recognize that it's every 50 times.
Right.
So,
and that would be a lot of editing. But that has happened. That is a valid strategy.
There's more than that, though.
I think it was Jason Hernandez's site who actually used that strategy on the original show back in 1984. And I think this contestant named Rick was I think it was a little after Larson. But he noted that he stopped when there was only like 1 or 2 whammies on the board. Because he figured on average there's 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
So when it got to none, 1 or 2, he just stopped.
Exactly. So on this version with 0-1 whammies, with 0-1 whammies, or with 2 or fewer within 10 switches of the board, that's 90.7% of the time, and 14 over 99% of the time. So you just wait for the board to flip 14 times, and you're basically not going to hit a whammy if you can actually pay attention. So that means there's an average of 1.12 whammies when you hit the buzzer, which is a whammy rate of 6.27%. Instead of 1 every 6 spins, which is, constant with the old show, you're hitting a whammy once every 16 spins. And 6 over 16, of course, is going to be equal to 2.67 to 1 ratio. You realize what that's done? You've essentially given... You've given yourself... Give me a sec here. Be very quick. You've essentially given yourself 10.68 whammies compared to everyone else's 4, based upon what you're doing there. Here's the flaw, though. I think it's fixable by most people, but it's human-related. What is the transition time between the board? And how fast can a given person, be it me, you, or anyone else, do that? The transition time between the board is 4/5 of a second. Thankfully, the whammies, they're bright yellow, they're bright red. You can count them faster than you would most digits or most prizes for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very tough ask to do. But of course, we talked about James Holzhauer and the signaling device. That is something you can easily practice at home. You don't even have to care where it lands when you're practicing at home. You just have to make sure you get the timing right. So there's another strategy within this. And again, it applies back to the 1980s pressure luck. So of course, with the slide transitions, you have to change the slide that was on the square. Now you don't have to though. But a square can't show the same thing twice in a row. It kind of relates to the first one, I know. But that means if a whammy is on a square, that means when the board flips, the whammy is gone. And only one square in each of the first two rounds contain multiple whammies. Any other square? That's not the
7
case.
is one of them.
Yes, that's correct. This one's a lot easier. So if you can count the number of whammies within 0.8 seconds, that gives you another 0.8 second to press the button once you see the board. Very doable. So here's what I would do in short, basically, if you want to actually execute this, because right now this is just game theory. This is not execution. So if in the first 5 board flips you see 5 or more whammies, you want to hit the board after the next transition. Otherwise, hit it after 4 or more. If you use this, you'll hit the button within 10 flips 90% of the time. This decreases the whammies from 16.54 to 11.46, which is 1.872, which isn't quite the same. It's quite a bit better than 1 and 6 essentially. And now for round 2, remember that was round 1, so we're gonna add a new strategy in. If we count 5 or more on the first 8 boards, stop on the next one. After 8, drop it to 4. This basically allows you to hit within 10 flips 90% of the time and drops the whammy rate to 18.37% to 13.17%, or 7.6 to 1. Yes, it's disappointing that it's not Larson. I get that. I understand that. But this is pretty cool, isn't it? If you're hitting whammies 40% less than your opponents, you're pretty good. 40% advantage over Joe Schmo and Jane Doe. What's not to like about that?
I can't think of much, but I'd also like to add this caveat to the strategy. People also need to know that the board patterns that you see on the show right now, if there is a season 2, might not necessarily be.
Yeah.
Oh, it has been renewed.
Yeah, it got renewed before it aired. Yeah.
Hooray! Those patterns might go away and new patterns might be on the board, but the patterns that Jessica has been talking about can still be there. Now, something that I want to talk about is how the bonus round works. Now, it is quite similar to the way the board pattern works on Whammy, especially round 1. The further you go along, the more whammies are going to be on the board. Now, if you take a look at the first round of the bonus game, you're not going to see that many on the board. It might be a little bit less than round 1 actually on the game. I think there's only about 7 squares that have whammies on the board. Normally there's 9. But the further you get along, the more whammies are going to be on the board. I think if my count is right, but it's usually wrong, the round 1 board is 7. Round 2 has 8 or 9. Round 3, 9 or 10. Round 4, 10 to 12. Round 5, 11 to 13. And the Big Bucks Bonanza has around 13 to 15 whammies. And some of those are two square, or 2 to a square. And in that bonus round, there is only one, and sometimes in the bonus game, there's only one square that will never have a whammy in it, and that's the big one.
Which is kind of nice, honestly. That actually, it sounds weird, but that is to a player's advantage to know, to see such a board, because you know that most of those whammies are not going to be there on the next slide. So, the vast majority of them, obviously, some will because they're as you say, they're going to be 2 square whammies. But obviously, it can't be all or even the majority of them, based upon your counts. And even if they're off a little bit, that still holds true.
Right, because I think at most you could probably do 17 whammies with. I think there's quite a few. I think about 2 or 3 squares have 2 whammies in them in the Big Bucks Bonanza.
Yeah, I gotta study the Big Bucks Bonanza a little bit more. This is a good strategy about how you win the main game. Don't take this for the Big Bucks Bonanza. So,
right.
but
Jess's strategy is for the front game. My strategy is the bonus game. Also, when you get to the Big Bucks Bonanza, always pay attention to your whammy count. And also of note, know that there are squares with loose whammies. There are none in the first half of the game. So, and here's something that I kind of want to start to see happening in the front game. In round 1, don't be afraid to be cutthroat.
Interesting. I think it depends where your opponents score and how you do on the questions. Historically, when I've played, granted, this is like let's say PC games that might not necessarily use patterns or they might not use solo-syncric boards.
Mm-hmm.
But I will take one spin and I will pass it because people I find are too aggressive in round 1 and they tend to. And of course, this is different than the actual show, but people were too aggressive in round 1 when chances are you're going to hit a whammy at some point between round 1 and round 2 anyway. And if you can minimize your whammy count, but still have something, then you have a chance to go later by putting yourself at very little opportunity cost at that point.
Exactly.
I think you can be aggressive on the real show, though. I should say there is that difference. The real show you should be aggressive because the patterns are so. The patterns of how the board transitions are incredibly simple to point out.
I would also add that this is one of the reasons why Melanie won her game. Not only because of good luck, is because her opponent also strategized this poorly. She was in second place and had 7 spins. Very rarely are you going to get past 7 spins and not hit a whammy.
Although, if you follow my strategy, theoretically you should, but most people won't. So
no. But so if you're in second place and you're the last person to play and your opponent has 3, pass him because there's a bonus game. You can make your money in the bonus game. Is it a guarantee that you'll make money in the bonus game? No, it's not a guarantee. But you're more than likely going to walk away the winner. Now, this is not foolproof. Let me say that before. Because on the previous shows, people have passed big amounts of spins, 7 spins or 8 spins, and have survived. One of my favorite moments from the original show is a guy by the name of Michael, who was past 8. And this was back when they had 36 patterns for the lights. And they were random. And he had 3 whammies all throughout round 2. And he survived. And I think he's the second highest one-day winner of the original run. Because he won with $32,380.
That's crazy, though. Can you imagine if that happened now? That would be everywhere.
What, 8 spins avoiding?
8 spins passed, win the game, and not whammy.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good place to wrap a bow on this segment. Next time out, we're going to stay with the summer theme and talk about some card sharks. Is that fine with you, Jess?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're gonna treat this ace on high right now. I mean, I have some stuff that I've done with Markov probability simulators that we're gonna get into some pretty technical shit. But I mean, y'all got your thinking caps on, and I think you'll be all right. Markov simulators are 10,000 simulations, guys. So we're prepared.
Oh yeah. We're more than just pretty faces here at Game Show Gumbo and the Gumbocast. We know our stuff.
Yes. We want to help you win. I mean, honestly, one thing I would love to do with this segment, is if somehow, my strategies or something I said changed how you saw a game, or better yet, it changed how you played or won a game. That would be fantastic. Please tell me about that, and let me know how it goes and what people say, because I guarantee you, not many people would think to approach these matters like this.
Right.
Especially not for card tricks. Card tricks, I'm going to say right off the bat, is counterintuitive in how you play it. So
It's all about the game and how you play it. Oh, I can't say that one might get copyrighted. Anyway,